So let's say you found a skeleton. How would you tell it's a dinosaur? You personally, how would you decide?
Well, interesting question. I don't know. I'd have to do some research on that.
Hey everybody, welcome to Matt with Maddie. What is it? 19? Is it 19? Huh.
Oh, I stopped counting after lots.
Oh. Well, I have
Hold
to
on, I'll look.
I have to
You
always tick up the number so that people know what order to watch in if they decide to binge, because people
in
actually...
the Matt with Maddie cinematic universe. Yes, this is number 19.
Yes.
So I feel like we should be fighting zombies in space by this point, really.
I mean, we have transitioned to a new Matt in the last few episodes, so...
That's true.
Yeah. All right. So, Maddie, how are you?
I am doing good. Oh, my goodness. Dissertation's going well. Baby's doing good.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Those are both
my side projects for me to focus on anything but my dissertation are numerous.
I'm definitely not helping with that as of late.
Not at all. Yeah, and speaking of which, I think you are going to help me. We're on Thursday.
Yes.
We're going to do a live on my channel, which has been dark since Hannah was born. So I'm looking forward to that. It's going to be on some really bad climate change takes, and it has to do with this guy, is looking at the Venus's atmosphere and is trying to use that to prove that the greenhouse effect isn't real.
Oh.
And it's so bad. Stafford, I read through it to make sure it was as bad as I thought it was.
And yeah, it's as bad, huh?
What in the sentence where he's saying that he's describing the greenhouse effect to prove the greenhouse effect isn't real. It's almost at the level of a flat earther talking about how gravity isn't real but buoyancy is.
Oh goodness.
Right? It's like that level, and this guy's like, and I know what I'm talking about. And I'm like, you clearly do.
Oh no.
Press X to doubt on that one. So that'll be this time on Thursday over on my channel if people want to come hang out with us twice in 1 week.
Very cool. Now, we got a quick thing. One, I accidentally played a few seconds of the opening again. Sorry about that, everyone. But also, I was reminded that, in fact, the what we're calling the Sal's Bitchmade timer was not on screen. It has been 64 days, 6 hours, 3 minutes, and about 22 seconds since Sal has been made bitchmade of his own volition. He chose to do this. He didn't even have to set up any expectations, but then he did, and he chose not to meet them. So, also, Sosuawa has gifted 5 Dapper Dinosaur memberships, so we want to take a drink for those and then read them out. Or we're going to read them out first. Lady Moonweb, there we go. LP, Darius Twizinski, sorry if I'm getting that wrong, Zach Brannigan, and Sophie Fishbach were all gifted memberships by Sosuabe. So thank you very much. Let's take some drinks. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And Maddie, what are you drinking today?
I have my favorite beer for these streams, which is Bearded Theologian, a Belgian quad made by a brewery out in Tulsa.
Very nice. Speaking of theology, I not that long ago said in our group chat that Dr. Joel Duff sounded like an amillennialist, and he was like, "Yep." I was like, "Called it."
Excellent.
I'm drinking some blackberry White Claw.
Ooh, okay. Nice and refreshing.
Yeah, well, I feel like maybe beer is a few more calories than I need this week.
I see.
Yeah. I mean, I had birthday pie last week.
Ooh, what kind of pie?
Key lime.
Oh, beautiful. Key lime pie is so good.
Yeah, I don't much go for cake, but I like pies, so.
Okay. I love making lemon meringue pie. That's a good summer pie.
Okay. So we are in case anyone was wondering. Here to take a look at the last 10 minutes and 30 seconds. I think we might even get through it. It's iffy. Of Matt McLean's talk about, does the fossil record support naturalistic evolution? And he was just telling us about how animals get off the ark and then they start diversifying from the ark kinds while some of them go extinct, and that's why we get this explosion of mammals here in the Cenozoic, which fails for numerous reasons, including that, you know, there are mammal genera that span that gap, not families, not just mammals as a whole, but like an individual genus, right? It's like,
Yeah.
on one side of the gap would be like having like the gray wolf, and on the other side it's like the golden jackal. Most people couldn't tell those species apart if all they had was the skeletons. Like, I guarantee you, we got like 56 people here right now. I guarantee you that probably about 50 of them, if I gave them the skeleton of a jackal, and a golden jackal, and the skeleton of a gray wolf, they would not be able to tell me which one's which. Other than maybe because they might know that wolves are bigger. They might just say the bigger one is a wolf.
I was going to say that the only thing I'd have to go bigger, I would say, was the wolf.
Yeah.
But
but if I scaled them to be similar in size and like a photograph thing, right? That might be a lot.
yeah,
harder.
did the scaled femur length thing?
Yeah, that's a very typical way to scale animals, is by equal femur length. It's handy.
Yeah, I would have no idea. I would just wildly guess.
Yeah. Actually, a lot of people have trouble telling the difference between, say, a wolf and a Tasmanian tiger, and those are very different, distantly related animals. So, but now we have some drinking rules. We already saw one, which is if memberships are gifted, we will take a drink per membership up to about 30 or so, because we have had 50 gifted at a go, and I was not going to sit here and count out 50 individual drinks. I just finished my drink, got another one, and then added 50 to the counter.
There you go.
Yeah, so at about 30 or so, we're going to be like, okay, nah. We're going to just finish the drink, add to the counter, get a new drink, and go from there. But those are greatly appreciated. So we also will take a drink. If the creationist in question says something that's just so stupid, we kind of have to in order to get our brains to cool down a little bit. This is brain coolant. And people are like, oh, but the alcohol kills brain cells. Yeah, those are ablative brain cells, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. They are dying so that the more important brain cells don't. Yeah. Then we will also take a drink if the creationists actually get something factually correct, but they can't just be quoting it from someone else. They actually have to be getting it out of their own brain. It has to start in their brain, go down, loop around their heart, come back up to their vocal box, then be expressed via their own vocal apparatus like lips and tongues and teeth and vocal cords and glottis and pharynx. Although this guy's speaking English, which basically only has one pharyngeal sound, and it's the H, which is barely even using the pharynx. So, like, I'll give him a pass. If this were Arabic, though, he'd have to use a lot more pharyngeal sounds. Yeah.
Gonna have to trust you on that one.
Yeah, Arabic has, like, 3 pharyngeal phonemes.
Okay.
So, yeah. It's a little, at least classical or modern standard Arabic, which is basically just barely simplified classical Arabic, has 3. I'm sure there are dialects that have fewer.
By the way, if you saw me kind of freak out and look down below my desk there a minute ago, there's a blanket under my desk, which has been there since the cold months. And it was falling on my feet, and for a second it felt like an animal, and I about freaked out. But it's okay, nothing alive in here. Spiders,
Besides,
so...
well, yeah, there's definitely some alive things in there.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, whenever the creationist tells a story that didn't happen or tells a joke that doesn't land, we'll take a drink for that. Also, if one of us can guess where he's going next, where it's not clear, we'll take a drink for that. We'll also take a drink if the creationist cites a source that not only fails to support him, but directly contradicts him. That's called a Trojan source. That's why we drink for that one. We'll also drink if the creationist in question mentions the National Socialist German Workers' Party or various, historically significant activities they got up to in, say, the 20th century. If you don't understand that reference, just Google National Socialist German Workers' Party. You will figure it out real fast. Now, on Matt with Maddie, we like to often say that if there's a mention of the Columbine shooting, that we will also take a drink. But this is not Matt Powell, so it's less likely.
Yeah.
Now, there are also a couple more ways. One is that if, in fact, we hear from Godzilla or Mothra, then we will take a drink. But also, if anyone sends a super chat or a milestone chat that contains any of the 3 kaiju emojis that we have here on the channel, just exclusively for members, we'll take a drink for that. And also, anyone who super chats, membership or not, or who milestone chats, which does require membership, that AIG is a bag of dicks, we will take a drink for that. And with the membership milestone chats, it kind of makes it like being a channel member is basically just prepaying for like 1 super chat a month. Which I kind of like to think about it that way, because not only do you get that, but then you're also getting access to all the like months and months of early access videos. Like I just put up another one, I think late last week. So yeah, there's a whole 6-part series up there that's not going to come out for months. It's probably not going to come out until like December. Well, no, that's probably more like October or November. But yeah. Anyway, Maddie, are you ready for more Matt McLean?
I am ready for more Matt McLean.
All right, I am too.
Let's do this.
Here we go.
And so that's why we're seeing the sudden burst of appearance of all these mammal orders, all these bird orders right after that boundary, because these animals are suddenly filling the earth and they're going into environments where they can be preserved as fossils.
Okay, but why weren't they before? Because his idea is that after the flood, now suddenly they're going out into all these locations. Okay, where were the birds and the mammals living during the time of the dinosaurs, right? Like, we have some brontotheres here, which are... They look kind of like rhinos, but they're only very, very distantly related to rhinos. So you can see, like, we've got that one in the back that has, like, the 6 little spikes, and this guy in the front with the 2 twinned horn spikes.
Yeah.
That's at least one kind, like Brontotheridae, right? Mm-hmm. Where did they live before the flood that such gigantic, heavy-boned animals weren't preserved, but other, even lighter-boned animals, like, Coelophysis, a tiny little chicken-sized, non-avian dinosaur, has exquisite preservation.
Yeah, well, and then also, by what mechanism, so these animals, now it's post-flood, they're out, they're repopulating the earth, by what mechanism are all of the, like, newer rock layers forming in 6,000 years, or 4,000 years since then?
Yeah,
right?
that's another odd thing, because creationists like to say that after the flood, geology just kind of resumes its normal course after a catastrophic craziness. But my guy, you got millions and millions. You got about 66 million years worth of rock to account for in 4,000
years.
It's a smaller problem. Yeah. It's overall a smaller problem than making the previous 4.5 billion years in a year. However, you don't have the convenient excuse of just hand waving it away as like, well, the magical flood did it.
Yeah.
You have to actually explain this in non-catastrophic ways, which... How do you do that?
How? Yeah. How are... So if now... Yeah, so... And then how are these fossils forming that fast? Because that's in the blink of an eye, geologically. So there's a lot of problems here. That he's just kind of glazing over.
Cross-Platform Adventure says, where does he think the flood boundary is located? As far as I know, he is on board with the AIG flood boundary, which is basically the KPG represents the boundary between flood layers and post-flood layers. So anything from the Paleogene on is post-flood.
Cool. Okay.
Oh, is that going to be the question?
That's what I was going to point out is on the slide.
Oh, okay, yeah. Oh, right, it is on the slide. There's me being observant. Steve Marino, who's been a member for 8 months, says, Power Rangers Turbo disproves the Triomni God with the pelagic tunicate. Look, if anything about Power Rangers, we're gonna disprove the idea that there's a loving God out there, it's Power Rangers Turbo.
Yeah.
Maybe Super Mega Force 2.
Can I say that my main complaint about the Power Rangers RPG is that there is no mechanic for, like, clotheslining the minions, right? The Mudmen or whoever, and making them flip over automatically kills them. Right?
Well, okay, to
that
be
happens
fair, though,
a lot.
They only have 1 health, so any damage that you deal with them does automatically defeat them.
Okay. That's true.
But the other thing is, like, if that's a thing that you wanted to do, we could probably work out a way to make that happen. Also,
I have tried to clothesline them into barrels several times.
well, okay, but you kind of suck at melee combat.
Maybe.
Yeah, and, you know, you could have taken more, was it might, but you didn't.
I didn't, but I'm very useful.
You are! Blue Rangers... Alright, this is very off topic, but real quick. In the Power Rangers RPG, Blue Rangers are amazingly good utility characters to have around.
Yeah.
But unless you really spec into, like, heavy range damage, chances are you're not going to be that effective at putting up punishment. You're going to be there for heals, for buff, helping other people get hits in, stuff like that. To Feel Sold for $5 says, AIG is a group of grotesque growing gene givers generating goof-ups globally. I like it. We'll take a drink for that.
Cheers.
That's very nice. Tsunamis, who's been a member for 6 months and is at the amnio level, says, the flood boundary is everything above where we find Godzilla fossils. Nice. We'll take a drink for that, too.
Beautiful. How else could God save us from Godzilla if not a worldwide flood?
It's true. Yeah. Yeah. And you say, oh, I don't think that logic works. And I say to you, have you seen Godzilla lately?
Yeah. How many times has Godzilla rampaged through your city?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
checkmate.
But that leads us to an interesting question.
Oh.
Why aren't these animals lower in the rocks then?
Yeah, that's exactly my question.
That's a good question.
Why are we only finding them after the flood?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, there aren't any human fossils that we found from flood deposits.
Well, unless you're into those Paluxy man tracks, but virtually no creationists are anymore. They've pretty much all dropped that except Carl Baugh and Kent Hovind. Kent Hovind because, you know, he's an idiot. And Carl Baugh, he's also an idiot, but I think it's actually because he set up his Creation Evidence Museum on, like, the doorstep of the Paluxy River, specifically because of the tracks. And so now, like, what are you going to do? Like, you put everything into this.
Even from immediately post-flood deposits. That's really interesting. So why is that? Well, let me give you a few possibilities.
Yeah. We'll take a drink for him getting it right.
First of all, I suspect humans lived in communities with animals that are more similar to our animals today.
Okay, that doesn't explain it, but interesting hypothesis.
I don't know about you, but as cool as I think this guy is...
I'm assuming he's pointing to the big guy on the screen.
You know, he wouldn't be a next-door neighbor for me.
Dude, people live near rhinos and African elephants. Does he just not know that Africa is a continent that has people in it?
I don't know.
Because that's all I can realistically hear is like, well, like, how would you live near these animals? And I'm looking and I'm like, this just looks like weird Africa, right? It's like bizarre world Africa. What's wrong with that?
Question. Do we know for McLean when he would put, like, the human agricultural revolution?
So,
or is that just, like, the fall?
Creationists don't like to talk about it, but they seem to assume that there was farming going on pre-flood. And because one of the first things that Noah does is make wine, he would have had to have got some grapes going. So they usually presume that there was no agricultural revolution. Humans have just always farmed since the days of Adam, especially since God tells Adam when he's expelled from the garden that you're going to have to work the earth for your sustenance. So, like, well, humans have always farmed ever since the fall. And it's like, okay, but we have very conclusive archaeological evidence that they haven't always farmed, but sure.
Yeah, but sure. Okay, because the agricultural revolution was the first domestication of animals, so I was wondering if there was a timeline here. Anyway. Yeah, not that we need another problem with it.
It's all very vague.
Yeah.
Right? I would live pretty far away from this. The pre-flood world, I think, was very different than the world we have today. Today, our world is dominated. When you go out to the African savanna, you see big mammals, right? I think the pre-flood world, if you had gone out to the equivalent of the African savanna, you would have seen big dinosaurs out there.
Okay, but you also had big mammal kinds on your arc, Matt. Like, you had proboscideans of multiple varieties, and brontotheres, and, like, rhinoceros, right? Like, rhinoceros. Among which, by the way, The rhinoceros family has produced the largest land mammals ever.
Cool.
And if you think elephants are big, it's because you've never encountered Intricatheridae, which is a group of rhinoceros relatives that got to be about 2 times taller than elephants.
Wow.
Yeah. Where were they, Matt? Were they just tiny?
And also, like, he says, I think, blah, but gives me no reasoning for that thinking other than it's nice, right? Like, I have a pet hypothesis for my own research, right? And I would put it as, I think this, but that's like, in the literature, there's 2 main options, and based off of the work that I've been doing that isn't published yet, right, I think it's A, and while other people think it's B, right? But like, I don't just think it. I don't just think Arctic sea ice melts by lasers, right? Like, I can say that, but that doesn't mean it has any weight.
Well, if it melts by lasers, it's obviously the Jewish lasers that also start the wildfires.
I wasn't gonna say it.
No, I won't. It's okay.
Okay.
You know what? It wouldn't be the first time that on the basis of virtually nothing, someone has jumped in the comments to say, hey, that's pretty anti-Semitic. The first time was when I covered Yosef Mizrahi, who had like Kent Hovind levels of understanding of evolution. Ooh. And I'm like, no, I'm sorry. It's not...
It's not anti-Semitic to identify that a person a person on the internet is wrong. Right.
Hey, fun facts. All ethnicities and religions have their idiots.
Yeah. I don't know if we've mentioned this before, but did you see that his tie has little dinosaurs on it?
We have, yeah, and it does, and it's great. And
it's a great tie. Okay.
Look, I'll say this. I generally find things to like about the ties that creationists wear. They tend to have good taste in ties, as far as I can tell.
Yeah.
So, Soulcat for $5 says, here's some penance for being late. Do I get to go to Evolution Heaven now? Yes, you do. Welcome aboard. All right, here we go.
You'd have seen all kinds
of
interesting animals as opposed to our typical mammals we see. And so maybe humans, birds, mammals lived in these restricted locations that had bad preservation potential.
Where, my guy?
Where one shred of evidence.
We have preserved deserts, swamps, oceans.
Yeah.
Like everything that you could imagine. We even have limited preservation of forests. Were brontotheres living in the forests? They seem like, plains animals to me. So,
Also, if he recognizes that, the type of environment matters for whether or not a fossil is going to be preserved, then what is his problem in understanding the Cambrian explosion, right?
Yeah.
Of the, it matters what you're preserving and what you're preserving, what you're trying to preserve and what you're trying to preserve it in, on whether or not it's going to survive or be hard to find.
Well, the answer is, what his problem is that he has a prior theological conclusion that he is not allowed to disregard because of evidence.
Yeah, and you want to know something that kind of pisses me off about, so, we've said before, Matt McLean, best Matt, right? The bar for that, in the basement.
Well, best Matt among the Matts we've covered.
Among the Matts we've covered, yes. Sorry, thought that was implied. Of the 3 Matts, Matt McLean, best Matt. And so, there's part of me that, I was actually checking before we went live, and he does have, papers published you can find on Google Scholar, right?
Do be careful, because the Answers Research Journal and the...
pops up.
Yeah, pops up on Google Scholar. So, just that it's in Google Scholar is not sufficient for you to go ahead and say, this must be a legitimate source.
But, we know his university is accredited. It seems like there may be some funny games going on in getting his program accredited, right? But, getting a PhD is a lot of work, right? And I would never do it twice. So, if you have a guy who, went to hyper-conservative white UC, high school and then college and then for graduate school, right? You've invested so many, like a full decade of your life at a minimum, right? Of your adult life to education. And now, even if in that, like, I wonder if he, like, I mean, he has to know the evidence doesn't actually support it, right? Like, you can't, I don't think you can get a PhD in this stuff and not know that.
It's hard to conclude otherwise, but then again, I mean, motivated reasoning and cognitive dissonance can be very powerful.
Yeah. So, like, and then he spent a decade in school, and I guarantee you he was paying for that out of pocket, you know?
At least for the undergrad portion.
Yeah, at least for the undergrad portion. And, like, the only job he can do with that degree is continue to be a young Earth creationist scientist.
Yeah,
you know?
It's... Hey, guys, if you want a degree in academia, don't go to a young Earth creationist school. Just don't.
Just don't.
It's going to severely limit, especially if you're getting a STEM degree, it's going to severely limit your options.
Yeah.
Now, like, if you're going for, like, an accounting or a business degree, I don't know. I have no recommendation about that, right? Because I don't know how they are at those things. I don't imagine that they would have to be bad, but they have to be bad at science to be a young Earth creationist school. There are no other options, right? It's like going to a flat Earth school. You cannot have a flat Earth school and be good at science because the things that you're teaching people are completely contrary to science. So, yeah.
Anyway, I was thinking about that because, you know, like, as I'm approaching the end of my PhD and I'm, like, so ready to be done, right? Like, how shitty would that be to just know it was worthless?
Yeah, that's gotta be rough. Also, Too Young to Feel This Old asks, who would you rather be forced into a debate with? 1, Armando Calvo, 2, Matt Powell, or 3, Eric Hovind? I know which one I would pick.
Okay. I don't know who the first person is.
Oh, that's the guy who runs Christ Righteous Ministries, and he has quote-unquote published, by which he means he's uploaded, like, PDF files to lulu.com, which will print any book for you. Several books with... I'll just say this. The title of his first book was God Exist.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, that's... All I have to do is tell you the title, and you understand the quality of the writing we're talking about here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So...
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
The person I think I could be most successful in a debate against would probably be Matt Powell, because I can use his sexism against him.
Ooh, yeah, I don't have that option.
Right, which is a little fun for me, right? Like, if you'll notice how, like, I did that stupid thing with
Nathan Thompson,
right? And he got him to fully rage quit by just
being a woman who isn't dumb. That's all it took.
Yeah, that's all it took. So I feel
It's
like
hilarious.
it would be the easiest for me to win against Matt Powell.
I'm sorry. It was God Is, but the subtitle was How You Can Know God Exists. That's right. Sorry.
Oh my gosh. So that's my answer. I think I don't know if I would have a pleasant conversation with Eric. Like, I've seen him and Paula Gia have very civil conversations, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know how gender would, or the fact that, like, I'm a Christian, that he would definitely think is heretical, you know?
I think, look, I'm not going to say to what degree, if at all, Eric Hovind is sexist. I will say, however, he's far less overt about it than Matt Powell is.
Yes, that's true.
I would probably choose Eric Hovind because, like, I can't imagine having a conversation with Matt Powell that does not end up in just a complete dumpster fire.
Yeah. So, like, I think Eric Hovind I could have the most pleasant conversation with, right? But I think the dumpster fire that would be Matt Powell would be somewhat delightful.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, Savage Cobra officials per se for $2 says they, meaning Armando Calvo's books, were approved by the copyright. Oh, that's right, because his quote-unquote books are also mostly just plagiarized from other books, unaccredited, and he said that he had them checked out by the copyright, and then he put a little copyright symbol on it as if that erased the fact that they were plagiarized. And also, no one can figure out what it means to have your book checked by the copyright. Because that's not an organization or entity that exists that will check your work to make sure it's not plagiarism.
Yeah.
It's
Sorry, my mom is texting me to ask
No.
how the baby's
in fact, it's actually up to the author. Oh, Mothra just came in. Let's drink for Mothra.
Mm.
All right, we're going to hit play.
Here's something else to think about.
Okay.
It's actually very difficult to become a fossil. Did you know that?
I mean, you just die and then you don't have to do anything. He probably means it's unlikely for any given
It's
organism.
unlikely. Okay, once again, we're so close to that Cambrian explosion understanding. It's right there.
Yep.
I think it's very likely that there were tons of animals, people, plants that lived in the pre-flood world that didn't become fossils.
Yeah, that's a problem for you. There's already more fossils than you could possibly fit on Earth in 1 year. Which I think I pointed out like on Saturday, right? Like the abundance of fossils is not a feature of Noah's flood model. It's a bug. It's a really big one. So now you're saying that already we have like, I'll use what is it? An example from Joel Duff, right? Who lives in this area where the ground, parts of the rock are basically just made of fossils. Like when you walk out, you're just walking on solid fossil. And these fossils are belemnite shells. And belemnites are a little cephalopod that had a calcified internal shell, right? They were kind of like squid, but they're not really squids. Anyway.
Yeah.
There are enough belemnite shells that if they were all alive at one time, they would fill basically the entire ocean top to bottom. Because the belemnite shell is much smaller than just the entire animal as a whole, right? It's like a cuttlebone, right? A cuttlebone is much smaller than the cuttlefish it comes out of. So, yeah, and now Matt wants to say, well, there were many times more than that. It's like, I'm sorry, so the world is already just completely coated in a gelatinous mass of cephalopod from one group of cephalopods.
Yes.
And you're just going to multiply that several times over?
Yeah.
Okay, and also we have to make room for all the algae the coccolithophores and whatnot, all these various types of photosynthetic calcium carbonate shelled microbes that go into making biogenic limestone. Which again, there's already enough of that if they were all alive at one time, the ocean would also, in addition to being a mass of solid gelatinous cephalopod tentacles, would also just be a solid miles deep layer of pond scum. How they're all getting light down there under presumably the cephalopods, I'll never know.
Who knows?
But,
yeah.
Yeah, see, this doesn't work for you, Matt. You can't just say, well, lots of things weren't fossilized. You've already got too many fossils.
Yeah.
And now I know you can say, well, we probably don't have too many like Dimetrodon fossils. Okay, yeah, sure, that's fair. But like overall, you've already got way too many fossils. You need to find out excuses as to how you can just have like the spontaneous generation of fossils that were never alive in the first place. You need to have a god who's just like, you know what? The world needs more belemnite fossils. I'm just going to make fossils of belemnites that never were alive in the first place. Which
And you get a trilobite. And you get a trilobite.
Exactly. Yeah. So, yeah, okay, sure, Matt.
Because to become a fossil, you have to be buried rapidly, right? You're not going to get scavenged.
So that depends, right?
That depends.
So
you can't. Yeah.
Rapid is a relative term, right? If you say one of the places where we get the best fossils are from the bottom of anoxic lagoons. That's one of the greatest. That's where we get like our best cephalopod fossils, our best feather impressions in fossils. They often become what are called Lagerstätten, which, I know, I don't speak German. Sorry about that. And those actually deposit pretty slowly, but because they're anoxic environments, all the aerobic scavengers have nothing to do there, and so it's all down to the anaerobic bacteria, and anaerobic metabolism is way slower than aerobic metabolism, which means that it actually counts as fast, even though you're only depositing like, a few millimeters a year or so. You can still cover up an animal before it completely rots away, and you can still make it a fossil in that small amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
So, Oh, Icarus says I did a
geologically
good job on that.
fast in anaerobic environments, in like dry environments. That's helpful.
Yep,
You
dry
know?
also helps. Yeah.
Yeah. So like things that are going to cause the remains to be like undisturbed for long periods of time.
Mhm.
You know, it could be buried in a landslide, right? That can happen, but like that's going to be rarer than falling to the bottom of an anaerobic to the anaerobic region in a lagoon. You know.
Mm-hmm. All right, here we go.
It's not going to decay, but you have to be brought into a depositional basin.
Oh, DM, the air in space is different, Wing. Great Matt Powell reference. It says, YouTube ate my super chat as I came in, so sending again. Do a Carl Bot, do it, with 4 Godzillas and a pelagic tunicate. Sorry, a Cecil tunicate. A good, hardworking American,
God-fearing,
patriotic. Yes, Cecil tunicate. I'll take a drink. So here's the thing with Carl Bot. Most of his stuff is boring. Just really boring, because most of it is just him like nesting like 18 different clauses, never actually getting to a main verb, and then just moving on. And you're just like, what just happened? A lot of words were spoken, but I don't think if I diagram it out, it actually turns into a sentence. And the answer is no. No, it doesn't.
No, it does not.
So, yeah.
Excellent.
But I'm certainly open. I'll tell you, if you send me a good, interesting Carl Baugh video, it's probably going to have a guest on, right? Because Carl Baugh on his own is just insufferable. Then yeah, I mean, I could take a look at it. I could do that. I do have one, I think it's just a one-part thing, covering Carl Baugh from back before the channel was even close to doing like, 3 videos a week. This was back when I was struggling to get 1 video a week. So
let's say you lived on the coast, which
a lot of people do.
All of our big cities today, for the most part, are on the coast, right?
Mm-hmm. The kind of place where you're going to be first buried by those tsunamis you're talking about, that you're using to explain all those organisms. Yeah. Cyberscobra, official per se for $2, says, Dapper diagramming Carl Baugh stream. Oh my goodness. You guys, look, I'm not going to say no, but like there has to be some kind of incentive in it for me other than just, Dapper, you get to diagram one of Carl Baugh's attempts at a sentence, which is not enticing.
And if you have big floodwaters coming in, imagine a tsunami or something like that, and it picks you up and sweeps you back out to sea, you're not going to become a fossil.
That's how you said all those Cambrian and coastal fossils got formed, Matt. I'm taking a drink.
Yeah.
This is ridiculous. Humans aren't going to get fossilized in this way, but all the trilobites will. Don't worry about it. Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense, Matt. Such a dumb take. And it's like, you don't even have to be like an expert taphonomist to notice. He's just contradicting himself.
Yeah.
You have to pick one, Matt.
He's contradicted himself on several points.
Oh, yeah.
It's not going to happen. Because invertebrates and fish will eat you up. I know that's kind of disturbing, but that's what would happen. Or you'd end up in the ocean where there's all kinds of plate tectonics happening and magma pouring out of the ground and things that are going to destroy you.
Okay.
Yes,
yeah.
and
Go ahead.
Melt the surface of the Earth.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, we're ignoring the heat problem for the purposes of this.
Yeah.
But Matt, here's the thing, right? We have fossils from tsunamis, right? Like that's a thing that we have in the fossil record. Identifiable tsunamite containing fossils. So we know tsunamis can preserve fossils. So all your arguments about why it wouldn't work and if a tsunami hit a human, they would never be preserved, we know it's false. Because we have tsunami fossils. Period. That's it, right? You can go on all day talking to me about how bumblebees can't physically possibly fly. And you can have all sorts of great models and math and all this to explain it. But all I have to do to refute you is go outside and watch a bumblebee.
Mm-hmm.
Similarly, you can have all the crazy stuff you want, all the math and all the physics explanations and all these chemistry diagrams, I don't even care, say that tsunamis can't preserve fossils. Well, then what the heck are these fossils doing in tsunamite, Matt? That's all it takes.
Yeah.
And you can say, well, maybe they're not tsunamite. Well, okay, then how did all these marine organisms end up on land together with a bunch of crocodiles and dinosaurs, all with, things like meteorite ejecta from thousands of miles away embedded in their gills?
You mean like what you would see if there was a global catastrophic flood?
Yeah, kind of. Except that you would be
But
seeing
we
it
don't-
everywhere. Yeah.
But we don't see that everywhere, so we know what that would look like.
Right. Yeah, we do.
But it's not everywhere.
Right. That's the problem. Yeah. Goop23 member for 11 months says, according to all known laws of aviation. Yeah. Bumblebee flight. Totally impossible. Actually, when I was a kid, that was a thing people said. And basically what they meant was scientists don't know how bumblebees fly. But people were like, bumblebees can't fly. And I was just a kid, like, looking around. I'm like, I feel like they can, guys. I don't know.
The only way you get preserved as a fossil is actually if you get trapped on a continent in a basin where the floodwaters are washing you in, where you can get turned into a fossil.
Matt,
No?
marine fossils are a dime a dozen.
Marine
They're all over the place.
fossils are a thing.
Yeah, I'm taking a drink. My goodness.
Jeez. Can you tell I'm going to lose my voice this stream?
Yeah.
But if I had hot tea, I would melt.
Well, what if you had iced tea?
That wouldn't help my throat.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
What if-
sacrifices I make for you and your audience, Dapper.
I mean, look, we all appreciate it.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked at all if humans basically didn't get preserved. They just got, boom, destroyed out there in the ocean.
Well, that's weird because all those other animals that are not particularly bigger or smaller than humans got preserved, so...
Right. Also, now apply that logic to the Cambrian explosion.
Yeah.
This makes me feel like, okay, do you know back in like I think it was the Victorian era when people thought that like how big your head was would predict how smart you were, right? And so this study was led by an English gentleman, right? And he was like, see, look, men's heads are on average bigger than women's heads, and therefore that's why men are smarter than women.
It's science.
However, you see that good, God-fearing English men's heads are a little smaller on average than German men's heads. But that doesn't mean that English men are less intelligent than because remember, the Germans eat a lot of cheese.
Oh. That's...
Something, their diet artificially makes their heads bigger. So my logic applies... Basically, my logic applies however I want it to, such that we have scientific evidence that English men are the smartest people on planet Earth.
How convenient.
Right, this is what this feels like to me, though.
It really
right?
is, yeah.
It's the same thing. If all evidence you look at supports your hypothesis or your worldview, or says that you and people just like you are the smartest, most handsomest, best people on the planet, right? Like, there might be a problem with your assumption.
Yeah, just maybe.
Maybe.
Heather Kuhn for $5 says, the Bumblebee claim assumes rigid wings. Guess what Bumblebee wings aren't? I'm going to go ahead and guess rigid, yeah. Sam Talbert, who's been a member for 8 months and is at the amniote level, thank you very much, says, AIG is a bag of Richard Nixons. We'll take a drink for that.
Ooh, cheers.
Oh, it was a nice reference for Nixon, yeah.
Those tricky Nixons.
One of my favorite Futurama characters.
Yeah.
But let's talk for a minute about what you see after this boundary.
Okay.
What do you see as you continue to make your way up the fossil record? You know what you do get is a record of change.
That's true. We'll take a drink.
That's, yeah.
Of course, you get that below that boundary, too. I could show you a very similar series that's much more extensive for, ceratopsians, forming a much wider grouping of animals than just Equidae. DM, the Air and Space is Different Wing, who's been a member for 12 months at the amniote level, says, membership benefits 1 year. Look at that. With a Godzilla and several God-fearing, hard-working, patriotic American sessile tunicates. Yeah, my voice gets a little creakier and deeper as I go in about the sessile tunicates.
Rah, rah, rah.
Thank you very much. And also, congratulations, that Ceratosaurus skull looks great. If you stick around for, I think, 6 more months, you'll actually get the the dapper dinosaur skull, or not skull, face. So, in fact, I don't think anyone has gotten the final badge. There's a final membership badge at like 48 months, which is crazy. But I think a few people are close.
Actually, what we see is that the Earth is recovering from the flood. And initially, the Earth is very tropical and wet. You get giant snakes like Titanoboa and giant crocodiles down in South America.
Everywhere, all at once?
I mean, look, in the Paleogene, the Earth was much hotter overall than it is now, but there were still, like, seasonal ice.
Yeah.
But there were no ice caps. There were no, like, permanent year-round ice caps. Nor was there permafrost.
But I mean, like, everywhere was tropical. I'm gonna press X to doubt.
Well, astronomically speaking, the tropics are only the areas where the sun is ever directly overhead. And
yes.
So,
okay. Yes. So yeah, that wouldn't work. But I mean, like, tropical from a meteorological perspective is going to be, very like hot and humid. It tends to be towards the equator. It's characterized by sort of a lack of seasons. You get like a rainy and a dry season, right? That's kind of all you get.
So you're saying I live in a tropical area, meteorologically speaking?
Don't you live in a desert?
Yes, but we basically only have 2 rainy seasons that are each like a month and a half long, and then we just have dry seasons.
So no, you would live in a desert, but like a tropical region and a different, right? Because it has to do with like tropical weather. The tropics have it's still very humid.
I'm
even
learning.
If it's so you get like a lot more moisture in the air. Again, it was tropical and wet everywhere. There were no deserts that we know are driven by planetary circulation. That's a function of how fast Earth spins. And
there were
else.
Definitely deserts.
Right. So, sorry. And then everything's in grasslands, right? No.
Nope.
No. And now an ice age is different because like an ice age is everything's cooler. There's warmer, colder areas. But like you've got massive ice sheets everywhere. Anyway, also, if the ice age is happening post-flood, why didn't anyone write about it?
Yeah, it's a little weird.
Like, we have written records from China that go back that far.
And
other civilizations, and no one's like, and it's real cold.
Yeah.
Right?
And there were mammoths wandering around.
Yeah, ate some mammoth meat. Paid my taxes in mammoths instead of goats this year.
There you go.
Right? Like...
Sounds handy.
Like... Yeah!
Al Trucker, who's been a member for 3 months and is at the annual level, says, Hook, I got a lot of months left. Keep the knowledge flowing, and the young Earth creationists can keep letting wind whistle through their ape skulls. Also, I'm choosing to pronounce that as Hook. I know what is probably intended, given that it's a PH, but I'm like saying it like it's in Phuket, the city in Thailand, I believe.
You get your horses that would have come off the ark probably were little tiny guys like this. They could carry around if you wanted to and put them in your purse.
Okay, I just gotta say, if you were to do the what's a kind thing and all you had were like modern equids, like zebras and horses, and you had Hyracotherium, no one in their right mind is going to say that those were the same quote-unquote kind. He's just showing us obvious macroevolution, and then he's be like, but nah, humans and chimpanzees can't share a common ancestor, though. And I'm like...
Hyracotherium's got toes!
Yeah, like, dude, you went from 4 toes in the front feet to 1. You went from tiny to, gigantic. Look at the change in the proportions of the limbs.
It's not the same animal. That's not just a tiny pocket horse.
Yeah.
Right? Do I want a pocket horse now? Yes, but that's not what that is. We can't have everything. What, Matt McClellan?
Right? Okay, Matt, so explain to us why this doesn't count as evolution and why
doesn't this not? Yeah.
Despite this radical redesign of this animal, that
looks a lot like change in allele frequencies over time to me.
Yeah, it sure does.
Okay.
He has a pretty big purse, but, a pretty strange person to do that. But you could do it. And the teeth they had were for browsing, eating leaves. And then what we see as you make your way up the fossil record after the flood is the earth is drying out. And we see the appearance of large grasslands across North America, South America, Asia, Africa, Australia.
So what I want to point out that most creationists put the ice age, because they think there's only one ice age, about 300 years after the flood. So he wants you to think that you went from Hyracotherium to at least Pleiohippus in about 300 years. I'm just going to take a drink for that, because that is absurd in the highest degree.
It blows my mind that they're like, evolution's not real, but we need steroids to make all this work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you know what? God built these animals to change within their created kind.
Dude, the idea that you think that this is a change within a created kind, just to me says there's no meaning behind the word kind.
There's none.
Tiktaalik, who's been a member for 14 months and is at the amniote level, says Calacotherium, Paraceratherium, horses, etc. are just results of epigenetics. Geez, Dapper. Oh, yeah, that's a good point. I forgot about that. It's all just epigenetics.
They could be ready for this. And God built them to have the ability to be bigger, run faster, have taller teeth for eating grass.
Fuse their toes?
Yeah, so apparently God just gave them the ability to evolve. Okay, Matt, sure.
Okay.
And you say, well, that kind of sounds like evolution.
Yeah, I do say that. I'll take a drink for that. That's true. I do say that.
It's true.
Well, the thing is, we know animals change.
Mm-hmm.
If you guys own a dog, I mean, none of the breeds of dogs you have Noah brought on the ark, right?
Jesus Christ, Matt. Dogs are basically genetically identical, right?
Yeah.
Every dog is basically identical to every other dog genetically. I'm sorry, you are not going to get a dog to reduce to one toe and go from being like the size of a Chihuahua to the size of a freaking Clydesdale in the course of 300 years, along with a radical shift in diet.
Right, yeah.
In the wild, mind you.
Yeah, just go to the one toe, right? Just do that.
Yeah.
Just do that. And tell me that's the same animal.
Goodness. And the thing is, dogs are a group of animals that are unusually diverse in terms of morphology, right?
Yeah.
Virtually no
that's
other
our
animals.
fault.
Right, and that's humans. No wild animal has this degree of morphological diversity within it. Like,
No,
none of them.
and I mean, this is just anecdotally, but like street dogs all look the same.
Oh yeah, yeah, they tend to.
Because we lose all that specificity of the purebred nonsense, and you get back down to the mutt, you got a dog, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you just get your generic Canis lupus familiaris.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
He would have brought the ancestor for those. Animals change, but they change within boundaries. That's why we think very.
You gotta say where the boundaries are and show that they exist.
Where's the boundary?
Very differently than evolutionists.
No, that's not thinking differently. No one who studies evolution thinks that there is to use Kent Hovind's stupid example, that you can get a dog the size of Texas, not because of a genetic limitation, but because of an environment limitation, right?
Yeah.
If you took dogs and put them on a planet with much weaker gravity and made food infinitely possible, right? And put selection pressure for them to get giant, and there was nothing in the environment preventing them from getting to the size of Texas, there's no reason why they can't, right? Except for that's never going to be selected for, because of they would collapse into their own weight on Earth, and where are you going to get enough food, right? It's external problems. It's not a genetic limitation.
By the way,
He's making me mad, Dapper.
I understand. He's making me mad too. Nee, who's at the amniote level and has been a member for 3 months, says, so the Tower of Babel was just made of blocks of ice. I mean, I think most of them put the Tower of Babel earlier than the Ice Age. It's very confusing to me. Well, I'll actually go into that a little.
The Tower of Babel and the Ice Age has to be similarly timed, because they need the ice bridge over the Bering Strait.
Oh yeah. Well, I still think that would put it before the Ice Age, right? So then those people scatter, then the Ice Age occurs, and they can move it? well, we'll talk about that in a second. Tracy Roberts for $10 reduce, my apologies, says, seeing he just mentioned Australia, why did all our unique fauna end up here? Did they wander off together, or did they get kicked off the ark before the great unloading? Yeah, there's no explanation for that. They just have these weird, like, post hoc explanations about, like, well, maybe they got chucked there by volcanoes. It's like, I'm sorry, what?
What?
Or like, marsupials are just naturally more docile, so they were chased all the way to Australia by, like, lions and tigers.
Have you met a possum?
Or have you met one of those yoked kangaroos that will punch your face off?
Yeah. I want to see a kangaroo fight a lion now. Except, like, not really, because that would be animal. But in a, like, I want to see Batman fight Superman kind of way.
Yeah.
Anyway,
so,
continue.
With the Tower of Babel, one of the problems they have is that they don't know where to put the languages, right? Because they recognize that everyone knows, like, oh, hey, like French and Italian and Spanish and all these other Portuguese and Romanian and the ones that people don't know about, like Occitan or, Romansh, all of those come from Latin. Everyone already knows this, right? And people who are a little bit better informed about linguistics already know things like, well, English and German and Dutch and Swedish all have a common ancestor. And then it's not too unusual for a lot of people to know that even Latin and the common ancestor of the Germanic languages also share a common ancestor, along with languages like Greek and Farsi and Hindi. So, like, did the Tower of Babel create Proto-Indo-European speakers? Which is a problem, because we know that the Proto-Indo-European was spoken as a particular language post-Ice Age. And we also know that that's almost certainly true for all the other top-level language families. So, like, what do you do with this? And also, it creates absurdly fast language evolution for a certain period of time, where, like, within your lifetime, within a single human lifetime of, like, 70 years, you could have seen your own language split 4 or 5 times into other languages. And so you're now 5 languages removed from the language you spoke as a kid. We all know that that's not what happens. No one's language works that way. It would be hard to find out how it could.
It also would be really hard, because you could argue, right, that, like, because it's, the Tower of Babel, so God made them all speak different languages. But, like, why would he make them speak 5 different ones in quick succession and forget the first 4?
Yeah, like, why do they forget them? Yeah.
Yeah.
Tiktaalik, this is a membership, this is a super chat, for 225 Argentinian pesos, says, tell me again how a tiger fought off a Thylacoleo. Yeah, the marsupial lion. Not exactly a docile type of creature. DM, the Air and Space's different wing, for $2 says, but can you explain Esperanto, Dapper? Godzilla? Actually, Esperanto is an example of an intelligently designed language, which is why it does not fit neatly into any of the other categories. We'll take a drink. Because unless fitting into a nested hierarchy is a design choice, design things don't do that. Cyrus Cobra official per se for $2 says, tell me how the lion fought off a Utah raptor. Also a good question. I actually don't know who I would give, like, the fight to in a lion versus Utah raptor. I'm leaning towards lion, mostly because I tend to favor the heavier animal whenever that comes up. Because all things being equal, if you just have more mass, there's a good chance that you're gonna have a good time in a one-on-one fight. So, all right, we're gonna get a little bit more in, and we're gonna take our break, and then we're gonna come back. And by the way, I'm seeing scores of you who have not hit likes. For shame.
Dozens of us.
Yes, just like the Never Dudes.
And then you would have had an ice age on the Earth after the flood, long after these things, and we.
Wait, long after these things? So Equus evolves long before the Ice Age that's happening like 300 years after the flood? Okay, buddy, sure. I'm just taking a drink.
Also, what do creationists think causes the Ice Age? Causes Ice Ages?
That it is a combination of, I think it's something like warm oceans from all the volcanic activity produce
Okay.
more water vapor, which then
Okay.
precipitates as snow near the poles, increasing the planet's albedo, reducing the amount of sunlight that hits the land, cooling the land off. But the oceans are still warm, producing a lot of precipitation. But now the land is cooler, even more of it falls as snow, reducing the albedo of the planet even more. Or sorry, increasing the albedo of the planet more. Sorry, I mixed up.
Milankovitch cycles are a much better explanation.
Well, they make sense.
Yeah.
There's that, and also like the physics works because
The physics, yeah.
sure I don't have to tell you, but warm oceans tend to warm the land, not cool the land.
They sure do. Turns out air moves over oceans.
Yeah.
And then it moves over land, and then that air is warm.
Yeah, in fact, the reason that like the same latitude in say North America tends to be much colder than the same latitude in say Europe is specifically because Europe has more warm ocean currents going by.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, that's why in Massachusetts, which is basically the same like latitude as like London, you'll get heavy winters full of blizzards all over the place, in which like 5 meters of snow will fall in the course of a year. And then you go to London and it's like, oh, we got 4 centimeters of snow. I guess London is shut down.
Yeah, so Europe in general has 2 things going for it. Which they have fewer. Their annual temperature cycle swings less there in Western Europe than it does like anywhere else on planet Earth. So one, it is it is the coast there in Western Europe is Western Europe, but it's east of the ocean, right? So the air, that is, the winds drive air over the ocean and then over land. So oceans have a much higher heat capacity than land, and so it takes them longer to change temperature, which helps to just sort of moderate temperature. So in, say, the peak of summer, the ocean is still cool, like it's like remembering the temperatures for spring, right? It's like 3-month-ish delays, right? So the air that's moving over, right, like England and Spain and France, is cooler than it would, because it's coming over the ocean, than it would be otherwise coming over a continent. And then that also flips in the winter, right? So the ocean temperature is, again, about 3 months in the past. So in the winter in Europe, the ocean thinks it's like late summer, early fall. And so that air is warmer than the air over the land. So it moves in and moderates the temperature, keeps everything a little closer to a constant. And that is also true on, say, like the West States. But Europe has California beat. By the way, that's why the best wine grapes grow in Europe and then on the west coast of the U.S., right? That moderated temperature helps the grapes grow really well. But Europe also has this beat, has like California beat, because the Atlantic Ocean narrower than the Pacific Ocean, right? So that's very true, right? So ocean currents in the northern hemisphere are going to go up the east coast of the continent and come down the west coast of the opposite continent in that ocean. So it's spinning clockwise, right? And so that warm water, coming up the Gulf, right, gets over to Europe, and that also helps to moderate it. So that means it keeps it cool in the summer and warm in the winter. And California just doesn't have nearly as much of an effect because the Pacific Ocean is so big. Anywho. Ooh.
Oh, I was a little bit muted. We're going to take a break now. Bye, everybody. All right, hey, welcome back, everybody. Thank you for sticking with us while we were gone. DM, the Air and Space's Different Wing, which, man, I still love that, says, I don't know, Maddie, isn't the U.S.'s legalization of gay marriage a better explanation for its harsher weather?
No!
Wait, what? Really? Also, that was sent with 3 pride flags and a Mothra, so we'll take a drink.
Okay, cheers.
That actually reminds me. I think it was it today or was it yesterday? Someone popped into like a month-old tweet that had shared my channel to like call me gay, and I'm just like, okay, dude, you must have all sorts of great things going on in your life if your current activity is popping into month-long tweets to call people you don't know gay for some reason.
First of all, we were both in the Navy. And if you don't know what that has to do about calling someone gay,
then you weren't in the Navy.
You've not been in the Navy.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, guys.
Right. And happy Pride Month.
Yeah, happy Pride Month. So, before we dive right back into it, I want to say, once again, as I usually do after breaks, first, thank you all so much for all your support. You guys are the reason the channel keeps going, because it is almost entirely because of direct support from channel members, patrons, people who super chat, things like that. The channel keeps on going. If you are not currently in that category and you would like to be, there are a number of ways for you to support the channel. There is a Patreon linked in the description. That is probably the most cost-effective way to help me directly, because they take the least amount of money compared to what you spend on, say, merch or YouTube. However, the memberships on YouTube also do give you access to things like the emojis and the badges, so that's also a pretty good value, I think, if you like those things. Either way, you get access to months and months of preview videos, early access stuff. You also can get access to my supporter-only Discord server, where we have a whole bunch of different rooms. We have a conlang room, we have RPG discussion rooms, we have an RPG play room if you want to actually play a tabletop RPG in the server with other supporters. We have a Power Rangers discussion chat, all sorts of stuff. And in fact, after my shows on Tuesdays and Saturdays, we typically then go and watch 4 episodes of Power Rangers. We're currently in Turbo, which I know that might not actually entice you to want to join, but it is what it is. We'll get out of it eventually. On Patreon, you can get a 12% discount if you go annual. You can't do that on YouTube, but either way, and if a monthly or annual thing isn't your deal, but you still want to support, super chatting is also always great. Or there's merch. There is a merch store linked in the description. You can just go to that. You can buy blankets, baby onesies, t-shirts, mugs, blankets. I think I might have always said blankets, pillows, stickers, phone cases, all sorts of stuff. And finally, if you simply don't want to, or you can't afford any kind of financial support, please share these videos, like them, subscribe to the channel, and leave comments. All of that helps the channel grow, because the algorithm has been it's been a little mean to me this past month. So I would like it if the algorithm were nicer to me. Now, ultimately, you can't completely change that. However, every bit of further engagement that you get or you give the channel helps. So with that, though, I think it's time to hit play. We've only got 6.5 minutes.
Let's do it.
Suspect that maybe the Ice Age, maybe that timing is right around the time of Job, or maybe even wrapping up by the time of Abraham.
Weird how the old kingdom of Middle Egypt didn't notice. Oh, did I just jump ahead? I just did.
Weird.
Yeah.
Job, or maybe even wrapping up by the time of Abraham. Now, how do we understand these things?
You don't. That's the answer.
What we can do is use something called Baraminology. There's a big word for you.
Oh, fun. I'm not going to get into the etymology problems of Baraminology, but here's the thing. Baraminology only works to distinguish kinds if you specifically ignore data that would otherwise overturn your ideas of kinds. Non-creationists have used the exact techniques of Baraminology, but not neglecting data that they could add, and recovered all of dinosaurs as a kind, including birds, or just, all of the apes, humans included, as a kind. And the creationists were like, well, no, because, you didn't use the data sets as we would have. And it's like, yeah, that's because I'm not cherry picking.
Right.
For $10, Savage Cobra Official Per Se says the algorithm can eat an AIG. Yeah, I wish it would, but alas.
Everybody, spam Al Gore on Twitter and tell him to get back on beat.
Yeah, there you go. For $2,
that'll fix the algorithm.
For $2, Goop23 says, so now Job is in China and the Ice Age? Yeah, did you know that Kent Hovind likes to say that Job was Chinese for some reason?
I was watching that the other day, and I was listening at work, and I was in my office. I think I audibly groaned. Just like, that's
Yeah, that was a
so
new one for me. I
terrible.
was just like, what is happening?
But it's very, like, I'm pretty sure
Oh, you just cut out a bit. You gotta go back.
I was gonna say, I'm pretty sure in Ken Hovind's mind, the world are the United States, Mexico, which is also all of South America, right? South and Central America. There's like France definitely exists. And then there's just the Middle East. There's China, and there's like the USSR, and that's his world. And Africa is one place.
Right, Africa. He also knows about Scandinavia because he says his family's from there.
Okay, well, that's like a country.
Borg Emporia, who's been a member for 2 months and is at the amulet level, says, had a really bad day today, and this stream is helping me feel better. Add 1 to the drink counter for a Mothra and a Godzilla emoji, but also a turtle, which is always fun. I'm sorry you're having a rough day, but I'm happy to help.
Yeah. I'm going to take a second drink just for you. Join me if you want.
Sure, I'll do that.
Yeah. So, to having a better day.
Absolutely.
Okay, Baraminology is something only creationists talk about, or evolutionists who really hate us.
That's accurate. We'll take a drink.
That's also...
Hate is perhaps not the word, but...
Hate's a strong word.
Yeah.
That's... maybe let's do a little self-reflection here, right?
Yeah. Why is it that professionals in science dislike us so much?
Why is it that why is this only known to us and people using it to directly engage and disprove us?
It's almost like it has no actual application in the real world.
Almost.
And Baraminology is the study of created kinds. That's why only creationists talk about it, or evolutionists who really hate us. The prediction with Baraminology is that there would be separate created kinds of animals and plants, just like God said in Scripture.
Okay, no, that's not a prediction. That's the initial claim.
Yes.
Right? So if I say, I think the moon is made of cheese, that's not a prediction.
That's not a prediction.
Now, if I say that because the moon is made of cheese, I expect that spectroscopy will return results consistent with lactose in moon rocks, that's a prediction.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, so this is the claim. And so then what does this claim suggest to be true that we could go for?
And the problem is...
Sorry, didn't manage to mute it that time.
It happens. The problem is that when you ask what predictions there are, there really aren't any that they know aren't already falsified.
Yeah.
So...
can change and diversify. God built them to survive, but only within their kind, not from one kind to another.
Still the claim.
Prove it. Still a claim.
So what we'd expect is not diversity preceding disparity. That's not what a creationist expects from the fossil record. We expect the opposite. Disparity preceding diversity. Instead of an evolutionary tree of life, what the creationist expects to see in the rock record is an orchard of life.
Okay, but this is just going back to, remember way earlier back in this talk, when he was like, how could all these phyla be around with not that many species? And it's like, because, dude, you're right at the area where every speciation event is essentially what's going to result in new phyla. It's just you not understanding how evolution works. So we're just going to take a drink for Matt saying, oh, look, if I misunderstand evolution, then evolution is wrong.
How tree branches work.
Yeah, that first...
Like, if you understand how tree branches work.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you think about, like, let's say you have a sapling, right? And it has a little split right at the tip of the sapling. Eventually, when that tree grows up, those are going to be, like, almost completely separate trunks.
Yeah.
But when you watched it, if you were to watch it grow from a little sapling, it's just a tiny little split at the tip of a branch, or the tip of the tree. No big deal.
The changes are small when they first occur, but if you have hundreds of millions to... is the current thought that the first life was about 1 billion years ago?
More closer to like 3.5 billion years ago.
Oh, geez. Okay, yeah. Sorry, life happened. Wait.
Yeah.
Cool. Never mind.
The first animals were probably about 800 million years ago.
There you go.
Yeah.
But first life. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, if you have a long time, right? Like, if a tree is real old, it can branches.
Yeah. All right, here we go.
Lots of little trees. A dog tree, a cat tree, a horse tree. No, don't misunderstand. I'm not talking about a tree you can go and pick a horse from and take it home, right? I'm saying, like, these are, you know, you could call them, if you want, evolutionary trees. I wouldn't call them that, but you could call them diversification.
Yeah, no, I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I was listening for laughter. I didn't even hear a chuckle.
Yeah, and actually, this is mostly just water now, so I'm going to finish off my water and pour the next seltzer.
There you go.
Because I feel like I'm cheating if I'm drinking, like, melt water from my ice. Like, that doesn't count. That's not a real drink.
Yeah.
So, here comes the next... What is this? White Claw? Yeah, White Claw. Ugh. Alright. There it is.
Are you drinking in honor of Erica while she's out in...
Yeah, basically. Well,
Excellent.
but also in some ways to slightly poke fun of her because she likes to pretend that she's drinking beer. And I'm just like, just own that it's White Claw. No one cares. Yeah, just own it. And she's still...
It's weird that you do.
Still just like, I'm going to get a beer. It's like, oh, what'd you get? Blackberry White Claw? Okay. Just say that.
Yeah.
Sean, who's been a member for 1 month.
Go on.
And is at the emulate level, says, since AIG is a sack of members, enjoy a package of membership. Nice. I'll take a drink for that.
Mm-hmm. Though Erica, I think she's from about the same part of the country I'm from, where like every soda can be referred to as Coke.
Yeah.
Right? So she could be doing that, right? Every alcoholic beverage that comes in a can is right.
I've never heard of that being a thing, though. But also, Sean just gifted 5 Dapper Dinosaur memberships. They went to W.S. Wordsman, Bryn Patterson, Chaz Sirius, Fragman75, and Timothy's Witan. And we will take 5 drinks. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay.
Cheers.
Here we go.
Bushes, whatever you want to call them, but they're these small little trees, right? Just like you can draw a genealogy of your family. Humans all belong to one tree. Everybody from Adam and Eve onward. And the flood would have...
Except for the Adam and Eve part, yes, humans all do share genealogy. So we'll take a drink.
reduced the diversity, many of these groups, and they would have had to re-diversify after the flood. Just like people. There were all kinds of...
Yeah, but Matt, you haven't gone to show any organisms that you can show definitively this kind, like this brontotherid kind, was here before the flood, and now here it is diversifying after the flood. They just pop out of nowhere after the flood, according to you. But according to, you know, actual science, we look and we say, like, oh, hey, there's this grab bag taxon that's really more of a grade called condylarths, right? And that's like the things that are close to being ungulates, but they're not quite there yet. And they have all this diversity, and out of them spring different groups of animals. And also, interestingly enough, you know what the condylarths look a lot like? The earliest carnivorans. And carnivorans and pangolins together make up this clade called Ferae. And the sister group to Ferae, among extant animals, Ungulata. So just like evolution would predict, the earliest members of both Ferae and Ungulata look a whole lot like each other. Weird, isn't it?
Weird that.
Yeah, it's also like, I've seen creationists show, like, here are what we think are the common ancestors of all the carnivoran kinds, like the canids and the felids and the hyenids and the mustelids, and you look at them and they're all virtually identical. Like, they all look as similar as, like, wolves and foxes. And it's just like, come on, dude, you don't see this?
Also, I'm kind of struggling with his graph there for young Earth creationism, because it implies that there were species that went extinct prior to the flood.
Yes, he does believe that.
That is theologically not. That is a very new theology.
Yes. So his idea is that Noah only had to take representatives of each kind on the ark, but that earlier than the flood, species had already started to diversify within their kinds, and so Noah, or maybe I suppose God, cherry-picked certain species from within those kinds, and only 2 of those went on. So pre-flood, there would have been, say, maybe 3 different species of canid. But Noah only needs 1, and that becomes the ancestor species of all the post-flood canids. So God doesn't care about species; he only cares about kinds, apparently.
Or in that, it's the second to the end.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That kind tree he needed to take 2 species of, though.
Oh, that was probably a clean kind.
Oh, it was a clean kind.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
We needed. Yeah, there is that. This feels like a lot of work. Do you know what I mean?
It really does.
This is a lot of effort.
Yeah.
To get around. That's almost sane evolution, right? Because it's one thing if you want to be okay, evolution is true, but also there was a, right? If all you were trying to do was there's a worldwide flood, we're not going to worry about deep time or anything like that, right? We'll just let the earth be as old as it is, and blah, blah, blah. But there was definitely at some point in history a global flood.
Right.
Right. Oh my gosh, trying to marry those 2 wrong things.
By the way,
so bad.
Brennan Herring has just joined the channel at the tetrapod level. So everyone, send in your
Cheers.
tetrapod emojis and your sessile tunicate emojis. Don't listen to Vishanti and put in Pelagi tunicates. No one wants to see that. All right, we're gonna hit play. We've only got 4.5-ish minutes.
Families of people that got erased at the flood. Only Noah's descendants lived on, right? And then rediversified again. And the same thing happens with animals. So where does this leave us? The fossil record, although it agrees with naturalistic evolution in some ways, sometimes it looks like it matches, right? You do get
No, it always matches, but okay.
more simple animals at the bottom and more advanced animals on top. You do only get humans at the very top of the record. But ultimately, I don't think the fossil record supports the fundamental expectation of this worldview, what you would expect to see from the rocks.
Look. Literally, the history of life on Earth, that as we understand it now, was built on the basis of the evidence of those rocks.
Mm-hmm.
So the reason they match, which they do, is because scientists just looked at what was in the rocks and were like, I guess that's it then. And then they could also, in other cases, as a result of having this large-scale view derived largely from the rocks, make future predictions about where to find new transitional fossils that, they work.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to take a drink for this fundamental misunderstanding of how science has come up with this understanding of the history of the Earth.
I'd also like to point out, I don't think he's ever defined what this fundamental expectation from this, right? What is that fundamental expectation?
Yeah, and how does it differ from what we actually see?
Yeah. Tell me that.
Yeah.
Please, in your conclusion slide. Prove this point to me.
Savage Cobra official per se for $2 says, I think that leaves young Earth creationists without a paddle. Yes. DM Wing for $5 says, only 2.5 minutes. Will he mention turtles, the best tetrapod? I doubt it. And let's see, QXWMRFZ, which I'm not going to try to pronounce as a word, for 66.6 sex. Thank you very much for donating the sex. I always appreciate that. Says, there is a theory which states that if ever anyone discovers exactly what AIG is and why they're here, it will instantly disappear. That's a nice reference. I like that. It's that is one of those slightly deep cuts into the Hitchhiker's Guide lore.
And I think that the fossil record might be better explained by young Earth creation.
Just drink.
It might be.
No.
But as of yet, do you know what? It's actually not.
Hey, that's true.
Now, I can tell you, I think how the flood works. Maybe Paleozoic and Mesozoic, we think are flood deposits. Cenozoic, we think are post-flood. But notice I'm always saying we think. We're pretty sure. We lean this way. Do you know why? Because science is constantly changing.
That's true. Take a drink.
And that's a good thing. That's how science works. Scripture doesn't work that way, right? Scripture, the truth...
Which, by the way, this is the only reason that you actually believe these things is because of the scripture. It's because of your specific interpretation thereof.
I was about to demote best Matt here to least bad Matt, right? But he might get to stay best Matt.
God gave to us remain unchanged for all time. For all time, even to eternity future, Scripture will not change. But science does.
I mean, look, here's one thing. Scripture does change. We know that that there are scribal emendations, that the book of Genesis was not written as a single work. It was compiled later from several different works. Like, it's just not true that scriptures don't change. So we'll take a drink from that. Now, that being said, it is the case that we do have pretty high confidence in what, like, the original text was upon its compilation. So it's not like you might hear from some parts of, like, r/atheism where it's like, who knows what's in the Bible? No, we know pretty well.
r/atheism has some really bad hot takes.
Oh, yeah. Look, r/atheism is not all that much better than your average young earth creationist. It's just that they focus their inanity in different aspects of learning. Mostly history instead of, like, paleontology or biology.
Yeah, I also... that's a different conversation. That's just because, like, I have some problems with, like, some new atheists, right? Like, so I just mean that, like, people... especially if they came from, like, a very evangelical kind of Christian background, because they tend to bring their desire to evangelize with them.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And the confidence of, but I used to be wrong, but I was really confident that I was right, but now I know I'm right, and I'm equally confident, and I'm going to go convert everyone. Right? It's the same...
Yeah, it's the same basic
kind of
dynamic.
problematic and really just asinine attitude.
Yeah. Hey, we love a lot of atheists on this channel. There's a lot of great atheists here.
Love a lot of great atheists. That's just...
However, there's definitely a giant cringe sector of atheism.
There's a cringe sector. It's cringe sector. Yes.
Now, why is our model
No,
at
no,
the moment not better at explaining everything in the fossil record than the evolutionary model? Let me tell you.
It's wrong.
We are lacking in manpower.
Okay, sure.
Okay.
Those are just two sides of the same coin. You're lacking in manpower because you're, wrong, and no one wants to go into dead-end research fields. So we'll take a drink.
I'm down to water, but that's okay.
Man, why is it that, the electric universe just doesn't have as good a predictive power? Must just because, there aren't that many people working on it. Or maybe the sun isn't actually a giant battery. That's another possibility. Yeah. Just putting it out there.
Right? There are probably less than 100 young earth creationists, geologists, and paleontologists out there doing serious research.
That's probably true. Which is interesting because it's in contrast to the hundreds of thousands of real scientists doing research in relevant fields.
Mm-hmm.
Almost certainly less than 100. Compare that to the tens of thousands of
free order of magnitude. I'm very confident it's higher, but okay.
Of evolutionary geologists and paleontologists.
Oh, just those two? Like, not including evolutionary biologists and geneticists and whatnot?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, that might be fair. We'll take a drink. That sounds like a reasonable estimate.
We're lacking time. Right now.
Dude, you have had 6,000 years, apparently.
Yeah.
What do you mean you're lacking time? Steve Reno for $5 says, Vishanti will decide Dappa's fate in the Pelagic Tunicate Uprising. Beware, Dappa. Then there's a Dapper Dinosaur, Mothra, Alpha 6 suck. Alpha 6 does suck. Alpha 6 is the worst alpha. I will take a drink, primarily for the Mothra, but also, at least in part, because, Alpha 6 is the worst alpha. My goodness, whoever decided that Alpha should be from the Bronx was just made a really bad decision on that one.
What are we talking about?
Power Rangers.
Oh, okay.
Alpha 5 is the robot that you meet in Season 1. But then in Turbo, like, Alpha 5 and Zordon, like, leave to go to their planet. And Alpha 6 shows up. He's got a slightly different costume, and suddenly he has a Brooklyn accent, and it's terrible.
Do you know what's a great show with a character from Brooklyn that's not that? Miles Morales. Liam and I just got to go see the loved it. We did it for Father's Day, so we actually had a babysitter, and we left the house, and we're adults for like 3 hours. It was great.
And, I mean, I haven't seen the Across the Spider-Verse, but I saw first one, and I loved it. So
Yeah, second one, amazing.
good.
It does end in a to be continued, which it bothers me when I don't know that going into
Yeah,
right. Like I think it earns the runtime, but that's a thing I want to know, and I don't know how I did.
I mean, I didn't know until you told me. So, all right, here we go.
Naturalistic evolution has had centuries to work on their ideas.
And you've had thousands of years.
But modern creation, geology, and paleontology, I mean, Dr. Mortensen talked about how there were these scriptural geologists back in the day, and then it just kind of dropped for a while.
Yeah, that's because it was shown to not be true.
And nobody was really taking up...
I'd like to point out that it was like the late 1800s when you get, is it Mary Anning, who's like the fossil hunter?
Mid to late.
Mid to late, yeah. And like, okay, there were theological problems with what she, right? With these like kind of first real fossil finds, right? Kind of like the birth of paleontology as a field, because they were finding fossils of animals that weren't still alive, and so therefore extinction was a thing, right? And that was a problem theologically because that meant God's creation wasn't perfect, right? And so like creationists have had the same amount of time.
Yeah, they could have been working on these models the whole time. It's just that, until Ellen G. White, the person who invented young Earth creationism, was like, no, we have to go back to this literal reading. Basically, no one in Christianity cared about the age of the Earth or anything like this. They were all like, yeah, okay, I guess science says that it's this old, so we should probably not take Genesis very literally. Then Ellen G. White comes along in the wake of one of the Great Awakenings. It's like, no, young Earth creationism. I saw it in a vision because I'm a new prophetess. You should all listen to me.
Yeah.
And then that filtered from the Seventh-day Adventists into like evangelical Christianity, because that was a time when fundamentalist Christians were looking for distinctives to create a in-group identity, right? They're like, who are we? Well, we're the people who take the Bible seriously. Well, just how seriously can we take the Bible? And then
seriously?
Right, that got swept in, even though I would argue that people who are Christians who are not young Earth creationists are not necessarily taking the Bible less seriously. They're just less likely to take it woodenly, literally. Right.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of swings into full gear from there. And because of this prior commitment, in disregard of evidence, to a theological standpoint, that's where we get young Earth creationism. Young Earth creationism has not, that I can find anywhere, ever actually been believed by someone who came to that position for evidential reasons, and then later perhaps converted to Christianity, or I guess in the case of like people like Yosef Mizrahi, to Judaism, which are
by the way, Dapper, I would watch the hell out of if you ever made a video on like the history of young Earth creationism. If you ever wanted to put those thoughts into a script,
I might do that. It could be interesting. I know there are a few videos on it already.
Flex that history degree of yours.
I do have a history degree. It's true. Although
so it's like my husband's bachelor's is in history. Some has to history nerd at me. Because he can't for one more minute, because like by profession he's a lawyer, right? So he rarely gets to history nerd, but sometimes he has to. So the next time you feel the urge to history nerd, I would watch that.
Well, the thing is, like, a lot of people I know who have history degrees, not just me, like especially an undergrad degree, it's very useful for things like getting down like techniques, how to think about complex topics, how to get like evidence, how to source things. And that's a lot of what I use it for, right? I use a lot of that experience with like getting proper sources, being able to defend ideas, find out if the thing someone else is arguing is something that's well supported or not. Is it this the consensus or not? Why is it not the consensus? If it's not the consensus, is it still a reasonable take? Things like that.
Yeah.
And I use it a lot less for things like, well, did you know that in the year 1522, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Like, plus here's a secret. Historians don't generally keep dates and years in their head.
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing you look up. It's like the speed of sound. When Einstein was asked about the speed of sound, he said, I don't know the speed of sound. And the interviewer was like,
Yeah.
how can you, the genius Einstein, not know the speed of sound? He's like, I look it up. Like,
Yeah.
this is not...
I've heard that same story about Einstein, except it was about his own.
Oh, well, maybe that's true too. But like,
It's
yeah.
one of those. It's
Look,
something he would think he should know, but he's like, nah, I'm gonna look that up.
Yeah.
Why would I keep that in my head?
Yeah. You've only got so much space in your head for like easy recall information. You're not going to fill it with nonsense. Also, fictional, but like Arthur Conan Doyle had Sherlock Holmes express similar things. Because like at one point, Watson's talking to him about like all this astronomy stuff. And he's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. It's like, how can you not know about astronomy? He's like, I'm a detective.
It's to the point that he doesn't know that like the Earth revolves around the sun.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. And
he's like, and I'm going to promptly forget it because I have a limited amount of space in my brain.
Right. It's all taken up with solving crimes, not with astronomy. Let the astronomers worry about it. All right, we're going to hit play.
Okay.
That challenge. And we're also lacking in funding, right? There's hundreds of millions of dollars available to fund.
Dude, you get millions of dollars to build a boat-shaped building in the middle of nowhere, Kentucky. You do not lack for funding. People have overturned scientific consensus with far less funding than you guys get. I'm taking a drink for that. That's ridiculous.
Your funding per capita is so high.
Yeah. Like, can you imagine starting a campaign to get funding to build a meteorology park and then getting like tens of millions of dollars to build a cloud-shaped building in the middle of nowhere?
It'd be, no one would.
No one would do that. No.
No.
Yeah, if Ken Ham had wanted to, he could have poured millions and millions of dollars into research. He thought a theme park would be better because I think that deep down, Ken Ham also knows that there's no point in funding research because it's not going to turn anything up.
Or, philanthropy.
Well, I'm just saying if you're going to keep it within a being used for young Earth creationist purposes.
Oh.
Plus, I mean, can we think of anyone who's less of a philanthropist than Ken Ham?
No, but I'm just saying that would be the more Christ-like thing to do.
Who cares about Jesus? We're talking about Noah.
Oh, I see.
The true central figure in Christianity.
Yeah. By the way, okay, I've been like, one of the things that my brain has been thinking about instead of my dissertation is how to design a class that would like teach. I think it would have to be like it's not just like scientific thinking because it's really like scholarly thinking, right? How do you look at a problem and like, okay, this is my hypothesis, right? If this hypothesis is true, what would be the cause of that, right? So what can we go look for that would bring evidence to that? Anyway, and I'm debating if like I'm actually trying to do that like online, because what would be really fun, right? If I was doing this in a classroom setting, the assignment would be like basically like pick something that we now know to be false, right? And like but like try to argue it or like experiment to set it up. But I don't know how to do that as an online thing. But that'd be really fun. That'd be a really fun class. Anyway. Right. Let's finish this.
Yeah, we've got 2.5 minutes. We can do it.
Dabber, I'm getting bored with Least Bad Matt.
Okay, well, I think next time we will have one of the two most bad Matts. So, Savage Cobra Official Per Se for $10 says, if you're a certain cult leader and convicted felon, you shouldn't fill your head with rote-memorized arguments when you have precious little room to spare. Yeah, my goodness, Kent has absolutely no capacity for original thought as far as I can tell. All he has
is it bad that I didn't know if they were talking about Kent or Nathan Thompson?
As far as I know, Nathan Thompson is not a felon.
Oh, okay. I thought he had been...
He's been arrested.
Okay.
But I don't think he's ever actually even been convicted.
Okay.
I don't even think he's been charged. He's just been arrested. But also, let's see. Silent Tetrapod gifted 5 Dapper Dinosaur memberships. They went to Interrobang, Arthur Ems, Caleb Ray, Niedby, I'm not sure, and Pseudodidact. So let's take 5 drinks. Here we go. 1, 2, 3.
I'm sorry, I'm out of beverage.
Darn it. 4.
Making you drink alone.
5. Yeah, now as a result of you having run out of beer, I'm officially now an alcoholic, because that's how it works.
Yes, that's how it works. Because now you're drinking alone.
Right. Which actually has always struck me as one of the odd things, because like very few other things that anyone does alone makes that on its own a problem. Like no one's like, oh my god, you smoked weed alone? You've got a real big problem. Or like, oh my goodness, you watched TV alone? You're a TV addict. It's like, I'm sorry, but if someone goes home and they live by themselves and they have like a couple beers, that's not a problem.
Or, you know, like a nice glass of scotch at the end of the day.
Yeah. Now, if you're constantly sitting around getting drunk by yourself, then yeah, okay. That's a problem.
Might have a problem.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it's always, even when I was like, when I first heard this as like a kid.
That wouldn't be less of a problem if you were doing and there was another.
Yeah. Oh, well. Actually, I think the first time I heard it was like, I think it was like a doctor asked, have you ever had alcohol? And I'm like 17. I'm like, yeah, I snuck a little bit of like whiskey from my dad's cabinet to see what it tasted like. He was like, did you do it by yourself? I was like, yeah, I had like 3 ounces of whiskey by myself. He was like, oh, that could be a problem. I'm like, okay, dude, sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is he just trying to scare you because you were a child?
Basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's not how teenagers work.
No, it's not. And actually,
no.
As a teenager, I barely had any alcohol at all. But like one time I snuck like 2 shots of whiskey and I didn't have friends around and problem behavior right there. Not that I'm encouraging kids to go drink, but like, come on.
I went to a like very evangelical Christian high school. And so like if they ever found out you'd had one sip of alcohol, that would get you kicked out forever. Right. So I didn't have any while I was
I went to a Catholic high school. They brought kids to go get sips of alcohol.
Nice. No. I was at a grape juice church, man. Yeah. So I had graduated and I my sister is 2 years older than me, and so she was in college, and so I would go stay with her for weekends, you know, and I did that when I was like 16. I did that before I turned 18, but like I waited till after I graduated school, and then I went with my sister. Well, then I went to a party with my sister and consumed alcohol. I had done all the other beer, you know.
Yeah. All right. We've got very little time left on this guy.
Evolutionary research, a lot less for creationists. Now, I want to stress, once again, this is a model. As I said, Scripture is absolute. It's the unchanging Word of God we can depend on to never fail, but science isn't like that. It keeps...
Dude, you can absolutely depend on the Scripture to fail if you're going to take it literally. It says that there are windows in the dome over the flat Earth, my guy. There aren't.
If you actually believe that, you should be a flat earther.
Yeah, flat earthers are the most consistent biblical literalists.
Yeah.
Because if you take the Bible literally, the earth is flat, there's a dome over it, and that dome has windows that lets in both snow and rain separately from separate storehouses that God has above the dome in heaven, where he physically lives, putting his feet on the earth. Because it's his footstool.
It's his footstool. He's got to rest those toeses.
Yeah. So unless you believe that you're on a flat earth that doubles as God's ottoman, you're not taking the Bible literally.
Excuse me, Dapper. Otto-woman.
Oh, I forgot.
Changing. It keeps morphing over time. And you know what? If some of these things I told you, it turns out, actually part of the Mesozoic is, post-flood, or part of the Paleozoic is pre-flood or something. That's okay. That's
okay, but would it be okay if you found out that there was literally evidence that precluded a flood? No. So you're not doing science. It just changes sometimes. You're doing the opposite of science.
Not changing the Bible. It's just changing our scientific understanding of the way things work. And that's fine, because that means our understanding is growing and changing. To be a good creationist scientist means that we hold fast to Scripture as our foundation, and then we...
Being a good creationist scientist is like...
It's an oxymoron.
Yeah, it is, right? It's...
You can be a good creationist, or you can be a good scientist, but you can't be both.
No, you really can't. It's like being a good vegan steak eater. You just can't do it.
You can be a good vegan, or you can be a good steak eater.
Right. You can't
Which
do
brings
both.
me to my favorite King of the Hill quote of all time, which is, "What do we do if they ask their steak well done, Dad?" "Well, Bobby, then we politely but firmly ask them to leave."
Yes. But then what if they slather it in ketchup?
That's not part of the King of the Hill episode.
No, it's not. It's true.
Explore the wild unknown, seeking to glorify God and enlighten ourselves with every discovery. And that's exciting. And we're going to talk more about that after lunch.
You might. We're not
Before we
going
go to lunch, I just want to say one more thing. I totally agree with Dr. Mortensen about the state of Christian education, higher education.
That it's shit?
Yes.
Most even evangelical schools out there have totally compromised on Genesis.
Oh, no.
And it's very, very sad.
I'm just going to take a drink.
Now, I'm happy to tell you, Masters University is not one of those. There are some, like Masters University, that have said, no, we think that Scripture is correct here, and we're going to hold...
Good to know that there are still some evangelical schools that will mislead you about science. DM the air...
that's where he teaches, by the way.
Yeah. DM the air in space is different wing for $2 says, Maddie to Dapper, God uses women as footstools. Hey, you know what? Some people are into that, and if it's consensual, that's okay.
That's true.
Yeah. You know, I'm not going to kink shame God, I guess. As long as everyone's agreeing to it.
There's a lot of the God of the Bible, right, being specifically one of his domains being very specific sex.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No. Look, the insistence on a monotheistic view of the God of the Bible is actually a fairly recent thing, even in the context of like the Maccabean revolt. Like, it's not until after like the return from exile in Babylon, which is not that far before things like then this, you know, the Seleucid Empire taking over and things like that, that you really start to get this firm monotheism. And before that, God definitely had a wife.
Excellent.
Do that. And so I encourage you to go check out our booths. I've actually got the little armband right here for Masters University representing.
Oh, yeah.
Go and check it out. After lunch, go and...
All right, so this is just commercials. So I guess that means that we're basically done with this.
Yeah.
So
Okay, that's good, because my voice is about to go.
No, yeah, I get that. Go into where it's cool, and then get some hot tea after you've cooled off a little bit.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Might put a little whiskey in it.
Ooh, that sounds nice.
It's so good.
Yeah, whiskey and hot tea is a really good combination. Also, whiskey works fairly well in coffee.
It does. Yeah, whiskey and coffee is great. But something about drinking brown liquor before noon, it's fine.
Look, days off exist for a reason.
Days off and shift work exist.
Yeah. That reminds me, actually,
If you've been at work for 36 hours straight, I don't care what time it is when you get off.
Yeah,
you're gonna have whiskey.
Yeah, like that's one of the reasons why like there are bars that open at like 6 a.m. It's because people are getting off work.
Yeah.
At 6 a.m.
Yeah.
They want to go and have a drink. And
I remember being so mad about not being able to get in an airport at like 8 a.m. because I had been in that airport overnight. I was from Japan.
Yeah.
And I was like, I have been in airports for 20 hours straight.
Oof.
Please, dear God, I need a hamburger and a Jack and Coke. And they were like, man, this is 8 a.m. The best we can do is waffles.
That sucks. I remember flying from Boston's Logan International to Incheon in South Korea by way of both Chicago and Narita Airport in Japan.
Oh!
Ooh, boy, was that a trip.
Navy travel at its
No,
finest.
I was in high school.
It was high school?
I was there
That wasn't
over the
Navy?
summer. No, I've told the story before. Like my adoptive human father had a business trip in South Korea where he was being invited by like the South Korean Board of Education or whatever they call it, right? Like the government thing in charge of South Korea's education system. And he was going to go teach a little course on how to integrate like computer technology into training teachers to then teach kids. It was very meta. Also, the real Dapper Dinosaur, not TikTok, says, I can't describe how much I love pelagic tuna cats. for 90 Argentinian pesos.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Dapper, I never knew.
Oh, yeah, weird. So anyway, but he had like a ridiculous amount of frequent flyer miles that were going to expire.
Okay.
So he's like,
Okay.
hey, do you want to go to South Korea this summer? And I'm just like, yeah, sure, let's do that. He's like, all right, let's get you your passport. So get my passport. And next thing you know, yeah, I'm off to South Korea.
That's awesome.
That was a really good trip.
That's awesome.
I was there for about 2 weeks. I ate way more kimchi than anyone should ever eat in 2 weeks, but that's okay.
Uh-huh.
Well, except I probably actually didn't eat that much more than like the actual Koreans there. But no, I had a lot of fun. Spent most of the time in Seoul. Went to the palace. Went to various museums. Went to like their military history museum. That was a lot of fun. Anyway, Dr. Tapioca
Awesome.
Weasel has been a member for 60 months and says, regarding kink shaming, is ethical consent possible in the presence of literally infinite power differential? With a Godzilla, and then a dapper dinosaur, a proper Cecil tunicate, and an AIG is a bag of dicks emoji, which means we'll take a drink. And I suppose if you could assure like perfect ethical conduct from the other partner, such that they would never hold a lack of consent for something like that against you, then yes. And if God is in fact all good, then presumably yes. So yeah, I think it's at least hypothetically possible. Probably wouldn't be if it were all humans involved and there was that much of a power differential among humans. But like if we accept the all good aspect, the omnibenevolent aspect of God, then I suppose probably. Soul Cat for $5 says, Dapper Dinosaur, what's it like for a Ceratosaurus to go through airport security? So it's actually not as bad as you would think, right? Because all I ever wear is like a top hat, a monocle, and a tie. And I can just put those right in one of those little trays that goes through the scanner. And then it's like,
But
what, do you think I'm hiding a weapon in the pockets that I don't have?
But you can't fit through the spinning machine.
That I don't have to, because they don't need to check me for anything that I'm hiding in my clothing that doesn't exist.
I see. So they just wave the wand over you.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And in fact, they don't even always have to do all much of that, because again, where am I going to hide something? I don't have pockets. I don't even have a shirt that I could hide something under.
That's true.
So like, I'm right there, out in the open. What are you going to do? Yeah, no shoes to take off, as Jillian Wren points out. Yeah, it's not that bad. All right, guys, let's wrap this up. Maddie, you got something on Thursday, right?
We got something on Thursday.
All right.
Guys, it's going to be the return of a live stream. Start trying to very slowly get back into doing those. I'd rather do them regularly, but infrequently, right? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Than be all sporadic. So we're going to try like a once a month, I think like the third Thursday of the month, do a pseudoscience debunking with more of a focus on climate change stuff over on my channel.
Nice.
So the first one is this Thursday. It's going to be at 8 Central, so the same time this stream started. And for this first one, Dapper is going to join me. We're going to look at, hold on, I've got the article pulled up right here.
Also,
Venus.
Ooh,
No
Venus.
greenhouse effect.
Except that Venus is well known for its greenhouse effect, but okay.
Yeah. That's what we're going to go over. I'm excited. So I hope
Nice.
some of you guys can hello.
Yeah. All right, and what time is that?
That'll be at 8 Central, so 9 Eastern.
6 Pacific.
6 Pacific. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you happen to live in one of the places where that's not an easy time reference for you, do the math. All right, let's take a look at what's coming up on this channel. So here on this channel, we've got on Thursday, I'm going to be having the what is it? Oh, I'll just double check. Yes, it will be the Hydroplate the movie. So it'll be a big long supercut of all the Hydroplate parts. So please do come for that, because the Hydroplate series has been a little bit disappointing in the view counts. So, you know, if you could help out, all 79 of you. Let's see. That's Thursday. On Saturday, I'm planning to have another Dapper Reacts. We're going to continue on with the nonsense of Dan Biddle. Then on Tuesday,
Excellent.
a week from today, I am planning to have Jackson with Jackson Wheat, talking about Charles Jackson, Bad Jackson, if you will.
Okay, Bad Jackson, though, is like 45 minutes away from me.
Ooh, weird. You could, like, run into him in, like, a Walmart or something.
Yes. And I've got to figure out if he actually has, like, a building organization ministry thing. Like, what if he had a terrible museum?
That would be interesting. I would be interested in you going to that and, like, reporting back.
Yes.
All right. Well, that's a week ahead. That's where I'm gonna cut off. If you just received a membership, remember to go to your Discord, go to settings, go to connections, add your YouTube account, and I'm gonna be over in Discord here in the next few minutes watching some Power Rangers Turbo. If you don't want to join us for that because it's Turbo, I more than understand. But we're gonna get out of here. Bye, everybody. Hey, before you leave, I just want to take a second to thank my patrons and channel members, especially those pledging $20 or above. Bob Knob, Benthoven, Tapioca Weasel, Denny5252, Elleron Teller, Phil Rivara, Ian Chen, Kelvin Brostic Van Manen, Landon Knoll, Maddie Babby, Monkey They Them, San, Sphincter of Doom, and the Venerable Bede. It's because of my channel members and patrons whom you're seeing on screen that this channel can stay afloat. Without you, it would all shut down. If you want to join the team, there's a link to join the channel below this video, and there's a link to join the Patreon in the description. On the Patreon, you can get a 10% discount for pledging annually, and either way, you get early access to virtually all of my scripted videos, often 3 to 5 months before they come out for the general public. Thanks for watching.